or who are able to remain for the most part at home. Now I'm a homebody, I never complain about being home, but it's getting to the point where even I would like to be able to go out and have dinner, with friends and travel and, go on a cruise, socialize without feeling like I'm taking my life in my hands if I do so. So I understand those of you who, this has been a reality for the past year. It's been like really challenging. So just know I feel your pain now. Maybe I didn't understand it before, but I certainly understand your pain now. Come on in. Come on in. I'm pouring the tea. I've got something really interesting today. It's a citrus lavender tea. So that's what we're pouring today. We have fluffed up the pillows. We're all ready for you to come in and sit a spell and just listen to me share some thoughts with you. This is Women's History Month, and I thought it would be appropriate to share with you um, information that I find, fascinating. I've discovered two women, one of whom I've talked to you about before. So I'll talk to you all about her a little bit. And then there's another woman who is equally interesting. Her life is very interesting. Both of them were slaves. And I think it's important that we start putting faces and names to women who came before us who were born into slavery and still managed to leave uncompromising and just really, really ridiculously wonderful lives, even given those circumstances. Um, so I hope you will bear with me. We're not going to be before you long, but I think these are two women. You hear about certain women all the time, and that's no shade certainly on them. They did great things, but there are so many others who are not celebrated and we don't hear about and who've been, forgive the term, whitewashed, if you will, out of history. And the second one is really going to shock you. There's a book that's being written about her, and I think you'll find it very interesting. And just so you know, her name is Julia Chin, and we'll be talking about her. She was married to this country's ninth vice president before he became vice president, and they had two children together. Bet you didn't know that. That's not in your history books. So anyway, we'll be talking about her, Miss Julia. And but the one I want to start with is one whose autobiography I've read. This woman is named, the first woman that I want to talk about. Her name is Amanda Berry Smith. She was born a slave in 1837 and she died in 1915. And during that time, she traveled all around the world, as a minister and as uh, she started an orphanage. She did just all kinds of things, and she when I say around the world, I mean literally around the world. She traveled to England. She traveled to Africa. She traveled just all over the place where she ministered to people, and in her autobiography, she makes it clear that she lived her life in total and complete dependence on God. And it's inspiring because she'll talk about a challenge that she was going through. She didn't have money for something, or she wanted a ticket to go somewhere, or she needed, money for food or whatever. And she would pray about it and a way would be made. And she talks about this over and over and over. And it's really inspiring when you see how complete God's mercy is. When you put it out there like that and say, I don't have a plan B. I don't have a backup plan. It's you and me and nothing else, Lord. That is like, wow. To be able to, take it to that level is just really, really, really wonderful. So that's not to say that her life was without conflict. She had two husbands, and one died, and well, they both died before she did. And it didn't sound like either marriage was particularly happy. It sounded like she had a lot of challenges. She had children who died. Um, so but nevertheless, nevertheless, she persisted. So she did. She's just somebody. Her autobiography, you can get it on. Uh, I want to say Google. That's not right. On Kindle, on Amazon, you can buy it. But the book is called an autobiography: the story of the Lord's dealing with Mrs. Amanda Smith, the colored evangelist. So just a really, I really couldn't put it down. I just found her story, the way she tells everything. Now, this is also a woman who had a total of 3 months education. 3 months. That's the total amount of education she had. But her voice comes through so clearly in the book, and it's basically challenge, I overcame. Challenge, I overcame. Challenge, I overcame. With the Lord's help, each and every time. So, I think she purchased her sister out of slavery. I mean, she did an amazing number of things in her life. So that's just a book that I highly, highly, highly recommend, and suggest that you give it a whirl. Again, the book is called an autobiography: the story of the Lord's dealings with Mrs. Amanda Smith, the colored evangelist. So that's a good one. I don't even remember how I found it, but it's certainly worthwhile, worth your time. The second woman that I want to talk about, share with you a little bit today, her name is Julia Chin. And Ms. Chin was born a slave I can't remember the year. But she was born a slave, and she was owned by the ninth vice president's parents, and they educated her. She worked for them, and she was given to the son who even his name is Richard Mentor Johnson. He was a Kentucky congressman. He eventually became the nation's ninth vice president, and there's an interesting story about that also regarding electoral votes. Now, how often we just came off of a ridiculous campaign where electoral votes became quite contentious. So this is a story where electoral votes for the first time became a real issue. And just side note there, he was running with Martin Van Buren, and Richard Mentor Johnson did not receive enough electoral votes to assume the vice presidency, and so he ended up being elected by the Senate, which is just a little side note there. But anyway, he was from Kentucky. He was a congressman. Spent a lot of his time in D.C. And when he did, she ran the household. She ran, and he wrote to, the white people that he dealt with, either on his estate, his plantation, or tradespeople, and he instructed them to deal with her as if they were dealing with him. Very interesting. Very interesting. She ran everything. She ran the household. She entertained. They had a very, very noted guest. They had this huge party for him. 5,000 people attended. There was Marquis de Lafayette, who's, a very famous person here. And she entertained. I mean, she didn't wear the simple, dresses that slaves did. She wore, the finery of high level people in society, high level women in society. Um, but what's interesting to me is how I never heard of her before. She's been erased from the history books. I mean, here is somebody who had status. She had children with this man. They had two daughters. Um, and those daughters went on to marry white men. Um, wait, I just came across something. Wait. One of the daughters, oh my God. Um, one of the daughters married a man named Daniel Pence, Pence. I'm um this is really interesting, but wouldn't it be something if we found that the last vice president, Mike Pence, was descended from this family and from this woman, Julia Chen? Wouldn't that be interesting? So what I'm saying is, I did not realize this before in doing the research about this woman, but one of her daughters, Imogene, she had two daughters. One daughter died kind of early. They both married white men. But the second daughter, Imogene, married a man named Daniel Pence. And it just occurred to me that maybe, possibly, it would take a genealogist or somebody to ascertain this for sure. But wouldn't it be interesting if it was learned that the last vice president, Mike Pence, was related and had some black blood? Wouldn't that be just so interesting? Wouldn't that be interesting? But anyway, um, apparently, back to the story. Richard Mentor Johnson lived his life. I'm sure they had money and privilege and everything, and he lived his life in a way where his preference for black women was very clear. There was one before he got with Julia. There was another woman that he had a relationship with that he wanted to marry, and his parents objected, and that's probably why they gave him, Julia. And I don't know what they thought that would do, but Johnson referred to her as his bride. And although it was illegal for them to marry, apparently they did have some secret ceremony. And, um, to outward society, he was considered a bachelor, and so I don't think there was too much of a public acknowledgement of the marriage, but he treated her as a wife and equal. What's interesting, he did not free her. He freed the daughters, but he did not free her. So, you know, one of the things that I think we as a society have to be able to face, everybody wants to just kind of move past and skip over what it meant to be a slave, and we think about it in terms of, the field hands and the picking cotton. And I heard a white guy recently talk. He didn't it was a police officer, and he didn't know his mic was on, and he said, I don't really see what was so bad about slavery. They were provided for, they got food, they got clothing, they got shelter. I don't see what the big deal is. Well, the big deal is you have no say about your life. You are property. You belong to somebody, and it's clear that for all the freedom, air quotes, freedom that Julia had, she still was not free in that, completely. He didn't free her, and that's troubling to me. I know it was a different time, and we don't we don't always evaluate, what happened then by standards of today, but it's just something I will defer to a historian and folks who are much more scholarly than I am to sort of figure that one out, because I just don't get it. I just don't get it. But anyway, Richard Mentor Johnson, back to him, was he fought in the War of 1812. He was considered a national hero. He well, things were cool as long as, he was just doing stuff in Kentucky. People tolerated, and this probably wasn't the only time that a white, plantation owner had a relationship. Well, it's clear that it's not the only time that a white plantation owner had a relationship with a black woman slave. I mean, that's why all of us black folks are the many, many, many different shades that we are. But um, I forgot the point that I was about to make. Oh, when he was elected to the Senate, um, and then he becomes on a national platform, things kind of changed a bit, and there was a lot of controversy. And when he was running for vice president, there were a lot of cartoons and a lot of criticism about his relationship with Julia and their daughters. Although Julia had passed by this point, and the way she died was kind of interesting too. She established, now this is really interesting. She established a school on their property, on the estate, and I read in one place that it was for Native Americans, but I'm not sure. This will have to be teased out a little bit further. But she established this school for whoever. I'm not sure if it was for slaves or Native Americans. And she was also, there was an epidemic in the late 1800s and of cholera, and she did a lot of nursing, and actually she contracted it, and that's how she died. And he did not remarry, but he did have, Johnson I'm talking about, he did have relationships with two other black women following Julia's death, but apparently her death affected him quite a bit. So I just thought those were two women whose lives we don't really know a whole lot about. We know about Mrs. Amanda Berry Smith because of what she told us in her books, but the letters of, apparently Julia, and I'm skipping back and forth, I'm sorry, but apparently the letters of Julia to Richard Mentor Johnson have been lost. So there's not a lot. I think historians are trying to piece together from secondary sources more about who she was and what she thought, and just about her as a person. Slave, running a plantation, mixing with high society, you know, acting as the lady of the house, but still a slave. Still a slave. So I just wanted to share those thoughts with you today. I think part of the path forward for us is being able to have these conversations and talk about, people like this who did these phenomenal things. George Washington Carver is another one who comes to mind. I mean, we talk about him and the peanuts, and the million things, that inventions that he did with a pure simple peanut. But there was a lot of tragedy to his life, and I'll share that at another time. So I think that's a testament to the human spirit. It's a testament to how we as Black folks have been able to survive and thrive, and we will continue to. So, my beloved, I'm I'm just leaving you with those thoughts. We will continue. I'll be doing more research on interesting women I think you should know, and we'll be back next time with more on that. Um, there is a book, if you want to know more about Julia Chin. There's a book called Great Crossings: Indian Settlers and Slaves in the Age of Jackson, that you may want to take a look at. And hopefully there's a historical society of black women historians, and I think that they are doing a lot of work on Julia Chin Johnson as well. So look for more to be coming out about her. But in the meantime, I hope you will continue to be blessed, be safe, and until next time, remember, everything you want is on the other side of fear. I love you. I'm praying for you. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.